Hello, I'm Claire Jewitt, and this is the Diary of an Orange Cat. The diary entries of a thoughtful, slightly neurotic ginger cat living in a small harbour community in New Zealand. Last time, in The Authorised Pet, Weasley became convinced that his new internet-connected cat door was less a convenience and more the beginning of an Orwellian surveillance state. After reluctantly allowing himself to be recognised as an authorised pet, he vowed never to use the sinister tunnel of death voluntarily under any circumstances. Unfortunately, life has a habit of making us face the very things we fear the most. This week, a fireworks party, a journey back to his old home, and some heartbreaking news send Weasley on an unexpected adventure, one that teaches him the true meaning of home. And now, it's time to go home. Hello, I'm Weasley, authorised pet, reluctant explorer, professional overthinker. Humans are always telling us that home is where the heart is. Personally, I've always thought home was where the food bowl was. Or perhaps wherever Mummy happened to be sitting. As it turns out, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Thursday, 26th of October, 2023. I never made it to see Winston. I spent the next couple of days plucking up courage, and last Saturday afternoon, when Mummy was helpfully holding up the cat door in yet another attempt to show me how it works, I rallied up my courage, closed my ears to the clicking sound, ran outside through the tunnel of death and into the outside world. Feeling pretty darn proud of myself, I headed down the path toward the front gate, where I met up with the enormous tabby cat that I used to call Stoatface. I've since learned that its name's Tiffany, which suggests that it's female, although I don't want to jump to conclusions, as some humans have difficulty sexing their cats, and mistakes can easily be made. Anyway, Tiffany/Stoatface invited me to a party, and I felt so pleased with myself for using my cat door that I said, why not? After all, why shouldn't an authorised pet give themselves permission to let their fur down on a Saturday night? To cut a long story short, it turned out to be a fireworks party. Stoatface, as I'm now calling they/them again, disappeared as soon as the fireworks started, and the only animals in attendance were drunk humans who kept dropping things on the ground and letting off those horribly loud, sparkly things they call fireworks that completely light up the sky. It was terrifying. I was so scared, and a voice inside my head shouted, "Run! Run home, Weasley!" But where was home? The new house still didn't feel like home to me, and I didn't want to go through the angst of using that sinister cat door to get back inside. I took a deep breath and went to the house that was hardwired into my internal GPS as home. The house where I used to live. As soon as I saw the for sale sign on the front lawn, I realised I'd made a grave mistake. A sense of emptiness gnawed at me, a hunger that had nothing to do with food. I couldn't bring myself to return to the new house, partly because I was hopeless at navigating my way in the dark, and partly because I knew I would face consequences for being out at this late hour. It had started to rain, so I sought shelter beneath the deck. Memories of our weekly mindfulness meetings flooded my mind, but I chose to be grateful that the rain had at least put a stop to the noisy fireworks. Monday, 6th of November, 2023. I tossed and turned, but my sleep was fitful and restless. I could remember the rasping sounds of possums shrieking in the trees outside this house when I'd lain on Mummy's bed at night time. But now, under the stars in the moonlit night, their alien-like calls seemed to be amplified, as if being broadcast in surround sound. I tried to drown out the noise by burrowing deeper into my makeshift bed under the deck, but it was no use. The possums were relentless, their calls growing louder and more piercing as the night went on. I longed for daybreak when their calls would fade away and I could finally get some sleep. When morning came, I crawled out from under the deck and made my way to the next-door neighbour's compost bin, hoping to find some tasty titbits to satisfy my hunger. I caught a mouse, but my stomach turned at the thought of eating it. Instead, I lapped up some rainwater from an upturned frisbee and set off to find Ron. Although I'd known Ron for several years, I'd only been to his house a handful of times. We usually preferred to meet at my house or play in the area at the back of the new retail complex. Today, I was on a mission to find him. I searched high and low, but the overgrown area was a maze and I couldn't see Ron anywhere. Frustrated and hungry, I finally stumbled upon some scraps of food. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. I found a place to sleep where there were fewer trees and the possum's cries weren't as loud. As I settled in for the night, I couldn't help but wonder where Ron was. I hoped he was out there somewhere and that our paths would cross again soon. Saturday, 11th of November, 2023. As the days and nights passed, I lost track of time. Each day I would return to the old house and would see the humane cat trap set up on the deck with a tempting trail of my favourite treats leading to a bowl of food. I couldn't resist eating the scattered treats, but I made sure to avoid stepping on the plate that would trigger the trap. No way was I going to fall for that trick again. While I was certain that none of the neighbours had seen me, I knew it wouldn't take long for Mummy to figure out my whereabouts. Sometimes I thought I heard her calling my name, but as much as I longed to be by her side, I didn't want to risk being shoved through that sinister cat door. I just wanted to be home, where everything was familiar and comforting. I was surprised that I still hadn't found Ron, and I started to wonder if he might have moved to a new home like I had. Part of me even hoped he would get caught in the cat trap that was meant for me, but the only animal that got caught in it was a possum. As I watched the possum hiss and spit in the trap, it brought back memories of my sister Seraphina. She was always full of knowledge and eager to share it with us. I remembered her telling us once about the nutritional benefits of possums. Possums are an excellent source of omega fatty acids, which help control inflammation and provide essential vitamins and minerals, she had explained. How on earth does she know all this useless information, I thought, smiling at the memory. My heart gave a lurch, remembering those happy days when we'd all got together on a Wednesday night for our mindfulness meetings. I wondered if I should try and visit Seraphina, but her house was miles away and I was sure to get lost trying to undertake a journey like that on my own. Lost. There was that word again. I was sick of feeling lost, and things were about to get a whole lot worse. Thursday, 16th of November, 2023. After a fruitless hunt for food, I went back to check the old house. Maybe Mummy had dropped some scraps on the deck while setting the trap. As I approached, something caught my eye and I froze. There was a cat in the trap, but it wasn't panicking or meowing loudly like I did when I'd got caught in it. I'd never seen this particular tabby cat before, but what surprised me the most was the way it was just sitting there, lounging on my rug as if it owned the place. I circled the cage, trying to see if I could gather any information from this cat, but it wouldn't even tell me its name or where it lived. It seemed too well fed to be homeless and lacked the wild, frantic look that most feral cats have. I tried asking if it had seen Ron, but it just stared back at me with wide eyes. Maybe it was deaf and mute. I gave a description of Ron, hoping for a response, and suddenly the cat perked up and started to speak. "Oh, you mean Wilbert?" it said sadly, giving Ron some name that I vaguely remembered hearing the night I got stuck in the man cave with him. "He's dead." "Dead? No, surely not." I struggled for breath, almost too shocked to speak. Not Ron? Not my friend?" I was only just holding back tears. What happened to him?" "Just old age," said the cat, who looked little more than a kitten. "He was about 18, I think." Now I was the one unable to speak. I hadn't realised that Ron was that old. For some reason I'd always thought he was about my age. 18, I suppose that's not a bad innings for a cat, but learning he'd died was too much for me. I needed to go somewhere else. Away from this cat in the cage, away from this empty house, away from myself, and away from all the weird stuff I'd created through my own stupid actions. Hastily giving the caged cat assurances that someone would no doubt come by and let it out soon, I ran next door, where yet another shock was waiting for me. All of my stuff was here. My bed, my bowl, my little sachets of kitten food that Mummy knows I love. Even my dirt box. What the heck was going on? Where was Mummy? Didn't she want me any more? Was this some sort of nightmare? Where was my home? I took a deep breath and shook myself, causing my feline senses to kick in. A voice inside my head told me it was going to rain soon, and not just a little bit. It was going to hose down. I gulped down the sachet of kitten food that had been left out for me by the neighbours and headed to a place where I knew there would be decent shelter from the rain and no possums. I needed to ride this out and figure out what the heck I was going to do next. Saturday, 18th of November, 2023. The past 2 days have been horrendous. It rained solidly, but I managed to make it back to the old house when the rain held off for a short while. I wanted to make sure that the cat wasn't still in my cage. Not that I would have been able to do anything if it was still there. I was relieved to find that both the cat and the cage were gone. So, Mummy wasn't even trying to catch me anymore. I ran. I ran and I ran and I ran. If I ran fast enough, surely I would find home. Instead, I slipped over and fell down a muddy bank. I managed to twist my leg somehow and ended up with thick mud all over my back. Far too much mud for me to lick off, so I just had to let it dry. I limped round to the neighbour's house and stealthily ate some of the food they'd left out. Then, a little later, I heard the familiar sound of Mummy's voice.
Weezy! Here, pussy! Weezy, come on, time to go home.
The sound greeted me like an old friend. It was the sound of home, the place that I'd been running from and running to, the place that wasn't defined by material comforts or the possessions within its walls. No, home was something deeper, something intangible. It was the opposite of feeling lost and alone. It was where I didn't have to fear the click of a cat or the explosion of fireworks, the placement of furniture, or even the presence of the large scary tabby cat. Home was where my friends were, where Mummy was. And as I limped towards her, a wave of emotions washed over me. Relief, joy, and a tinge of sadness for all the time I'd wasted running. But most of all, there was a sense of belonging, of being exactly where I was meant to be. The characters in my life. How about a brief session in the catnip, just to calm our nerves? My friends and family.
Remember to be strong and to be kind, not just to each other, but to all of those around us.
We're more than just one-dimensional beings.
I'm a well-rounded professional cat with a passion for fine food and great music.
They were complex with their own struggles and triumphs. They were the ones who pushed me to be better, who stood by me during my darkest moments. Even with the sadness of knowing that Ron had passed away, I couldn't help but feel a weight being lifted off my shoulders as I finally embraced the truth. Home was not just a physical place, but a state of mind. And with that understanding, I knew that I would never run again. Yes, it was time to go home. And this time, I was home to stay. That was time to go home. Like many of the stories in the Diary of an Orange Cat, this one is inspired by real events. The real Weasley disappeared for nearly 3 weeks after we moved house in 2023. Despite searches, posters, cat traps, and countless walks around the neighbourhood calling his name, he kept returning to our old home, unable to understand that we'd moved. When he finally came home, muddy, limping, and very hungry, it was one of the happiest moments I've experienced. Cats don't understand house sales, moving trucks, or changes of address. They build their world around familiarity, routine, and the people they trust. Weasley eventually discovered that home wasn't the old house at all. Wasn't his favourite hiding place or even the furniture he'd left behind. Home was where he was loved. This brings Weasley's diary to its conclusion. If you've enjoyed spending time with Weasley, Seraphina, Ron, Squeak and all of the cats of Diamond Harbour, I'd be hugely grateful if you could follow the podcast wherever you listen, leave a rating or review if your podcast app allows it, and share it with someone who loves cats, comedy or simply a good story. It really does help more people discover Weasley's world. Thank you for joining us on this journey. From Weasley, from me, and from all of the cats of Diamond Harbour, thank you for listening.